Story 1. It depends on the reason. They may need to care for a dying or sick relative or for temporary work. The reason is crucial. I wouldn't have an issue with it unless it was personal to me. Story 2. I want to live apart from you for a few months. It's hard not to see that as the beginning of the end. I have an opportunity to do something I really want to do, but it would require living apart for a while. It depends on what it is, but we can talk about that. Story 3. This happened to me. She was exploring her options with another person before finalizing the breakup. It was a complete mind game for me while she kept me uncertain. A difficult lesson learned. Story 4. It depends on the reason behind their statement. Is this regarding a job opportunity? Is it related to a class or internship? Is it because we are moving internationally, but it takes time to obtain spousal and dependent visas? Story 5. They can do it, but there is a fair chance the relationship is over. Life with someone can lead to petty grievances, especially if there are outside stresses like sick relatives or work pressures. You should be able to work through these issues with your partner or spouse, but sometimes space helps. The problem arises if one person doesn't miss the other. If both prefer the space, the relationship is effectively over. If both miss each other, it's time for better communication about the pressures you are facing. If one person misses the other while the other finds life better alone, then it's time to consider relationship counseling or parting ways. Children complicate things further, as they need to be a priority for both parents. Ensure they don't feel neglected or responsible for the situation. Having done long distance for work reasons, I know it is a difficult adjustment when you reunite. If you can afford it and are renting, consider moving somewhere new to create a neutral space. Otherwise, petty issues may become aggravating. Story 6. When I was a child, my parents lived apart for 2 years, while one of them attended graduate school in a different city. This was before the days of the internet or even affordable long-distance calling, so they were not in contact every day while they were apart. We had family visits 3 to 4 times a year. Once graduate school was finished, they moved back in together and are still together today. I'm not saying there is never a good reason for long-term partners to live apart. However, during that time, my parents had many discussions about the possible alternatives before deciding together that living apart was the best solution. If your long-term partner suddenly tells you they need to live apart without sharing any details, that is a significant warning sign. It is not necessarily the act of living apart that is concerning. It is the refusal to communicate and the making of unilateral decisions. Story 7. In my previous long-term relationship, I requested to live apart for a few months. What it really meant was that I couldn't stand him anymore. He seemed to make everything harder and more complicated than necessary. I always felt much happier and at peace when I was alone rather than in his presence. I wanted to try living alone to see if he was actually causing all the additional stress and reduction in my quality of life. Of course, he rejected the idea of me living alone for a few months, so I just broke up with him instead. Story 8. I see it as a major red flag. My strong feeling is that they might be uncomfortable or afraid to directly tell you that they want to break up. Story 9. Let them be. They are not in prison. We change and sometimes need to reevaluate our values, ourselves, and our lives. Sometimes you need to be alone to do that. Story 10. I told my husband I didn't want to live with him anymore. I am not sure that I ever want to again. He was very self-absorbed, inconsiderate, disrespectful, and just not present in the house, always distracted by his computer or phone. He became someone to clean up after. I talked until I was exhausted and dismissed. When he started yelling at my mother, I knew he could not live here anymore. Feels like a rain cloud has left the house. It's less stressful, and my children and I are happier. When he comes by, he actually wants to be present. When he is away, he can have his valued alone time. I don't want to divorce him. Maybe someday we will find our way back to each other. Just not right now. I am not interested in any other man, and I won't be. It's not always about someone else. This is not the beginning of the end of our relationship. Our relationship is surviving because we are separate for now. I just wanted to share my situation because sometimes people genuinely need space to get their lives together before too much damage is done. Story 11. I would ask what makes them feel that way, but ultimately, it would be a huge blow to the relationship. Story 12. Suddenly, as in you had no idea where this came from, you thought things were great. I would be very curious about what happened to cause such a sudden shift. But yes, the relationship would probably be over. Story 13. It depends on the reason. If my mother or sister is sick and I need to take care of her, I will go, and I wouldn't be upset if my partner had to do something similar. However, if it's unexpected and for no real discernible reason, I would separate myself from the situation. I feel bad because it seems like there are many Americans in the comments. Story 14. For me, both the reason and their ability to articulate that reason matter. A vague statement like, "I need space to figure some things out" would not work. I would need it to be more specific, although not necessarily highly detailed, since I understand that these matters are complex. For the most part, I believe that people in long-term relationships, especially marriage, should work through issues together, particularly emotional ones. If they have a problem they are dealing with, even if it does not directly involve me, it is part of being a good spouse or partner to help them find a solution. If it is something that directly involves me, then I need to understand it so I can at least try to make any necessary changes for them. If the reason for needing to be apart relates to work, helping sick relatives, or a close friend, then there is no reason to make anything of it. Of course, it's fine. Story 15. Bon voyage, but don't come back. We are a family. I can't just decide that these kids are too much, and I need to live separately from them for a while. Such is life, and I must deal with it. Story 16. They want to end the relationship, but it's too difficult for them to express. They have already moved on mentally. Let them go. Story 17. It would warrant a deeper conversation and likely some couples and individual counseling. Sometimes people need a break. When things get tough, we can hurt each other if we stay. We have done long-distance relationships for a year and a quarter due to military obligations. Sometimes individuals need space to figure things out. This is definitely a sign of a deeper issue, whether it is in the relationship or personal, that needs to be addressed. I don't think it means a relationship is doomed. It really depends on the couple. I trust my spouse very deeply. He has kept his vows and has never broken my trust. We have had painful conversations. I know it is entirely possible that one day he may need space or I might need space, although both seem unlikely. Life happens, things happen, and people need different things. So no, it won't be a deal breaker, but it will require a lot of work from both sides. Story 18. We have been married for nearly 26 years. He would need to explain his reasons. Some reasons I could accept include, I need to take care of my mom and handle her estate, or my job requires me on site for 2 months for this rollout. Other reasons would lead me to suggest therapy or divorce. Story 19. They are considering actions that will make me angry. There will also be discussions about divorce when you leave. Story 20. I'd say okay, but how about we make it permanent? I will still keep dating him. I won't break up. My fondest daydream in life is living alone and being responsible only for myself. Story 21. Has your partner been asking you to help more, and you haven't? Has she stopped asking anything from you? Has your partner become disinterested in you? Perhaps there have been many hints you did not pick up on, and now your partner has made a decision that does not include you. Story 22. Mature adults can take time apart and still be viable partners. If you rely on someone so heavily that you cannot grant them space and continue living your own life, and the idea of being apart feels devastating, then this is an opportunity for you to learn about codependency. Life can be much better when you stand on your own feet and appreciate people for who they truly are, without putting them on a pedestal and feeling threatened when you are scared. Story 23. I suggest he get a brain scan or assessment. We have a strong relationship, and even if he were to leave unexpectedly, this wouldn't be the conversation. Story 24. They met someone else and want to see where it goes, but they are keeping you on the back burner in case it doesn't work out. Start saving money now. You are about to be paying that rent on your own. Story 25. Looks like I'm moving too. If they need space, they must provide a solid reason. No excuses. Relationships are about communication. Story 26. If my partner didn't tell me why, I would expect that he is either running from the police or has an affair. At that point, I am done. Story 27. It matters why. If my husband sat with me and said he wants to go on a tour and play music in 5 bars because he has been feeling lost, I would be okay with that as long as we plan accordingly. To be honest, I can't think of many reasons why I would be upset as long as I understood his reasoning. Story 28. My partner had a relative pass away. He moved into the relative's house to clean it up, do repairs, prepare the contents for an estate sale, and maintain the property until it was sold. After that, he stayed at his parents' cabin while he worked on repairs and renovations at that property. Both properties are over an hour away from my house, so commuting every day didn't make sense. It was more cost-effective for him to stay. We realized it actually helped our relationship. We've been living apart for a year now, and it's working for us. Story 29. Without providing any reason, I would assume they are experiencing a severe manic episode and contact the hospital. Of course, my husband is diagnosed with bipolar disorder, so I would not make this assumption about someone else. Story 30. Depends on the reason. For a job, sure. If they are sick of living with me, I would take that as a sign that the relationship is coming to a close. Story 31. That's cool. I understand. Then immediately hire a detective to follow her for a couple of weeks and also consult a divorce lawyer, just in case. Could be nothing, but it pays to be prepared. Story 32. It is a fact of life. My wife can either live here and not work or go on the road and earn significant income. Everything involves a trade-off. Ultimately, we will relocate to a place where she can work permanently. Story 33. Part of understanding is that sometimes we just need space to figure things out or have someone to take care of, like a sick relative. Part of my assumption is that I might be being cheated on because everything seemed fine, unless it wasn't in this case, and they never spoke about anything. In the end, I would sit them down and ask why they need to live apart and react from there. Story 34. We are lacking details, and whatever inference you want us to insert to replace them, the situation is moving in the opposite direction of a more secure and fulfilling relationship. Compassionately, I would not make any long-term vacation plans. Story 35. It's over. You are leaving home, we are done. You are having an affair and want to test the waters before leaving me for them. Story 36. Without any context, I would obviously assume the worst. With context, it depends on the situation. Story 37. My ex-wife often made comments about living on her own when we discussed future places to retire. She ended up cheating, and I am divorcing her. If you have a spouse who wants to live separately, let them go but do not take them back. Story 38. These usually signal the end of the relationship. Some might say she is testing the waters, but perhaps it is just a way to avoid confrontation and let someone down gently. Story 39. I would have to assume an affair if they mentioned it unexpectedly and we were not experiencing personal problems or arguments leading up to it. Story 40. If there were no serious reasons, 2 months alone would be great. Maybe I would suggest to my husband that we see each other on the weekends and become engaged again. However, how wonderful are the moments of solitude, silence, and the showers without being interrupted. The clean house is also a joy. Then I would call him again because I would miss him, but a little peace wouldn't be bad. Story 41. For me, it's just my Navy boat getting deployed. I need to live apart so I don't go to military jail. Story 42. It would depend on the reason and the relationship. Living separately can be healthy for some and completely dissolve a relationship for others. In any case, it is not a decision I would want to make suddenly. I would be especially doubtful if it were presented as a demand rather than a topic for discussion and mutual agreement. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.